Hello and welcome. Thank you for those who are on. We are going to just give it a couple minutes here for maybe a few more folks to attend, and we'll get started here shortly. Thank you. Okay, it is 2:04 Eastern time here. I think as good of a time as any to get started. So hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our second of 4 webinars as we look at making the move to BIM. Slide, please. My name is Sean Gaffrey. I'm a director here at DLT Solutions on our digital design team. And for those listening today that aren't familiar with DLT, we are an Autodesk Master Government reseller. We've been in partnership with Autodesk for over 24 years, and our specific focus area is public sector customers. DLT, as a Master Government reseller, works with a network of technical VARs to provide sales and support to you, our government or public sector market. When we looked at the year and we looked at the webinar series and also the seminars that we're performing this year, the concept or the core of what we were doing, we were very excited about the enhancements that Autodesk is making, not only in their technology, but how they deliver their licenses, and most importantly, how some of our like-minded customers are utilizing the solutions. So DLT wanted to be at the core of delivering and driving valuable content that was designed specifically for government customers. So we are thrilled in our continued partnership with Lynn. Like we mentioned, this is the second of 4 webinars. Hopefully some of you attended the first in early May, where we talked about what was new in AutoCAD 2019. It was a great session. We've got it recorded. For those of you who missed it, we would love to share that with you. Webinars 3 and 4, content to be determined and dates to be determined, we will share with this group as that gets cemented. Also, we're right in the middle of our live events. First, in early May, we had a live event in DC. And then in mid-June, we were in Denver. our third and fourth of our live series is happening just in a couple weeks in California. So we're taking California by storm. We're hitting both San Diego and Los Angeles. If you are local to that area, we would love for you to come out. You've got a registration link there on the slide, but we're throwing a lot at you, and we're going to utilize Gov Design Hub. It's kind of the portal for you to have all access to those links, have all access to those registrations. That's one aspect of the website that we launched in early April. The most important aspect of that website is actually pertinent content and articles for like-minded customers that are using design software and design solutions to solve common business needs. So we would encourage and love for you to visit that site, govdesignhub.com, and give us some feedback on the content we have provided there. Really quick, just a couple housekeeping items before I turn over the mic. You will all be muted throughout the entire presentation, and you will be in listen-only mode, but you can type questions through GoToWebinar throughout the conversation. We will try to answer them real time, and we may even grab a couple to pose to Lynn at the end of her discussion. So on to our presenter. Slide, please. In her 20-year career as a technology evangelist, Lynn Allen has spoken to more than 500,000 professionals at events in over 50 countries throughout the world. Her online presentations and videos have easily reached over 5 million individuals over the years. Lynn has coached hundreds of technical and non-technical presenters from multiple technology and design companies, helping them achieve maximum effectiveness both live and virtually. She has received numerous awards for her contributions to the design and technology communities. In short, she's really good at what she does. We're so pleased to have her here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Lynn Allen.
Oh, what a nice intro. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And thanks to all of you who are joining us here today. And if you do happen to live in San Diego or LA, I'd love to meet you personally. Please join us for one of those two events. And I, of course, am doing this presentation today. We're going to be talking about making the move to BIM, why you should be making the move to BIM. I'll give you some pointers as well, some advice on how to start to make that move to BIM. And I did just write an article that got posted, I think, yesterday on 10 reasons to make the move to BIM. So if you're trying to convince your manager or yourself, you might want to take a look at that. It's posted up on that Gov Design Hub that Sean was just talking about. All right, so once again, welcome. We're going to spend the next, not quite an entire hour with you talking about the world of BIM and why you should care about it, and recommendations on, once again, how to make it as easy on you as possible to make that move. And I'm kind of chuckling because this is totally a live webcast and my dog is scratching at my chair. I'm chuckling a little bit. So I like to talk about disruption. If you've ever heard me do a presentation, a forward-thinking presentation, I do like to talk a little bit about disruption. And when we're growing up and we hear about disruption, we probably got in trouble for being disruptive, and we think of it as being a big negative thing. But when it comes to innovation or technology, often disruption can lead to some pretty good things in the world and some positive forces. And we've all experienced some very disruptive technology, some very disruptive innovations that have led to some pretty amazing things that have changed, altered our world. And one of them we're all very, very familiar with, and why we're actually here today. But first, let me read to you this definition, and I got it off the internet, so I know it must be true, right? Disruptive innovation is an innovation that helps create a new market and value network, and that's where the opportunity lies, and eventually disrupts an existing market and value network, displacing an early technology, like this guy right here, AutoCAD, right? And I'm going to guess almost all of you on this webinar today are using AutoCAD or have used AutoCAD in some way, shape, or form. This is actually the release of AutoCAD that I started with, version 1.4, way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth over 35, well, I didn't start using it 35 years ago, but AutoCAD has been around for 35 years. And it's hard to believe that it's been so long, right? That's pretty stunning. And it's still a very popular product, right? There's still plenty of designers out there who use it as their main design product. You yourself may use it as your main design product. And that's pretty stunning that it's survived this long. And, you know, Autodesk continues to work with it and continues to develop it. And it was a very, very disruptive technology when it came out. If you recall, if you're not familiar with it, I'm going to brief you on it. It basically set forth to displace hand drafting. And I got involved in the early days of AutoCAD as an AutoCAD instructor. And believe me, it was disruptive. So I was teaching people who had only hand drafted their whole lives. I was teaching them how to use this CAD program. And let me tell you, they hated me. Some people loved me. A lot of people hated me. A lot of people were forced to take my class. And I had a lot of people who, you know, stood up in my class and said, hey, this CAD thing, it's never going to catch on. I could have drawn it 10 times faster by now. And I had people leave my class. You know, I don't know, maybe I wasn't a very good instructor. Maybe I was doing something wrong, but it was a very disruptive technology. And you have to realize that these people were not just learning how to use a software program, but they were learning how to use a computer as well. So like I would tell them, okay, go ahead and hit F1, and they would like hit the F key, and then they would hit the 1 key. I mean, they had no idea what they were doing. They didn't know how to use a keyboard. They didn't know anything. Very, very, very frustrating. And of course, the power with CAD was that, you know, you could only erase so many times on a piece of paper, but you could change your mind when it came to a design as many times as you wanted to using CAD. Plus, you could design up to 16 places to the right of the decimal. I mean, you could be super accurate. There were so many things that you could do with CAD that were limitations using a piece of paper and a pencil. So it was a pretty impressive technology. And as we all know, of course, it did catch on, especially when governments got involved. That's where you guys come in. Governments started mandating the DWG format all over the world, and that really caused CAD to win over the market, and you know, the rest is history. So now we're running into a similar type of situation. Well, we have been running into this situation for over a decade, where, you know, AutoCAD now, or was the prevalent format, the DWG format, and then this whole BIM thing came along, a very disruptive innovation and a disruptive process. And many of you are in this situation where, wait a minute, you're like that student, right? I'm really good at this AutoCAD. I get it. I feel comfortable with it. I've been able to feed my family with it. And I'm the star AutoCAD person. And believe me, I get it. Nobody gets it better than I do. I've you know, made a living at being really good with AutoCAD. And now this BIM thing's coming along. I don't know about it. And we all have hesitation when it comes to change, and it's hard to embrace it. But I'm going to give you a lot of good reasons in this presentation why we should make the move over to BIM. And we're running into the same scenario with BIM in that governments have been mandating BIM all over the world, and they're starting to demand BIM formats, and it's really definitely taking over as a result. In fact, this is one of the rare circumstances where the UK really, you know, threw the gauntlet down and started mandating BIM early, really early in the process. And this is, you know, the time frame's already passed, but a while back they said by the year 2016, all public sector contracts needed to have a level 2 BIM. And that was a pretty crazy thing for them to mandate. And you know, I was there many years ago. I was presenting at a conference on a very similar presentation. I'm making the move to BIM, and there was a lot of people going crazy trying to figure out how they were going to fulfill this requirement. A lot of people weren't familiar with BIM at all, and they didn't understand what these requirements were. And it was a pretty crazy time. But for the most part, they were able to fulfill this. They had to push it out a little bit. They had to lighten up on the restrictions. But you know, they pretty much laid the groundwork for making the move to BIM. And the rest of the European Union, even though ironically they're not part of the European Union anymore, they followed suit. And actually governments all over the world are mandating BIM for a variety of different projects. Asia, very, very strong in BIM, especially if you look at Singapore or if you look at Australia and New Zealand. There's a lot of governments out there, including the United States, many different aspects of the government that are mandating BIM as well. So you guys know where you are on that scale, and you're going to just see more and more of it. If you take a look just in general at BIM adoption, that's not necessarily focused on the government, you can see that BIM adoption has skyrocketed like crazy. If you look outside of the government, this also includes the government, but just in general. And as I go through this presentation, I'll be quoting quite a few statistics. Most of them are from Dodge. I love this agency, Dodge Research and Analytics. They create something called the Smart Market Report. The Smart Market Report, I'll show this to you again. It used to be owned by McGraw-Hill. You may have heard of it. Now it's owned by Dodge. All they do is they spend all their time getting facts and figures. And if you're trying to convince somebody, maybe management, that they need to make the move to BIM, I strongly suggest that you download these reports. Just look up Dodge. It'll show up, Dodge and BIM, it'll show up, because they have reports for all different industries and all different countries. And anything that you need, facts and figures, they can help support your cause, because they're very focused on BIM facts and figures. I love them. Or if you can't sleep at night, you can also download it and read it, because there's a lot of statistics in it. I'm a big stat nut, so I like to see proof. I'm always asking where the numbers are, so I love looking at these reports. And so you'll see up here, in fact, up here, you'll see it says the source is the McGraw-Hill Construction. That's because Dodge purchased them. So just so you know, and these numbers are a little bit old, but I like these numbers. And let me tell you, the numbers aren't going down. The numbers just keep going up. This is the percentage of the players using BIM on more than 60% of their projects. All right, so take a look at this. You can see, once again, the numbers going up, up, up. Whether you're an architect, an engineer, the contractors, or the building owners, you can see that those numbers are just going up. So this is the industry, once again, in general, just to kind of support the fact that, as you can see here, the AEC industry is moving to BIM. And this is worldwide. I travel all over the world doing presentations, and I just see it everywhere I go. Definitely some countries more than other. Third world countries are still fully engulfed in AutoCAD, but definitely the more advanced countries have made the move over to BIM for sure. So there's 220 construction workers out in the field right now. That's a lot. And 220 million, and that's a lot. But the numbers I really want to point out here is this is, in projects in general. It's expected that there's about a 40% material waste on those projects, which is a terrible, terrible number. You guys are, you need to meet budgets, right? You need to keep the tax dollars down, and you need to meet budgets, and you need to save money. And wasting all these materials on the construction site is a bad thing. And the more you make the move over to BIM, the less material you waste, because you can more carefully plan and know exactly how much material you need. Now, building owners, they absolutely expect there's going to be added cost to projects. You're in a similar scenario, maybe not necessarily with building owners, but you have people that you report to that have, budgets that you're trying to attain. And you don't like it when they don't like it when budgets are overrun, right? Once again, you have accountability. The average schedule overrun 20%. Once again, you have accountability. You can't handle that type of schedule overrun. What if you could take that number and reduce it dramatically? That's something that BIM is really good at, being able to keep your budget in line. And the average cost increase, it says 3 to 5%. Man, I would argue that it's more than that. That it's expected that the average cost of any project in the AEC industry is going to go at least 3 to 5% over. Man, I bet you it's more than that. I was surprised it was that low. If you could reduce that, that would be a good thing, right? So that's the type of promise that BIM can give you, keeping everything in a more controlled environment. So what the heck is BIM? If maybe there's some confusion, right? Maybe you're a little nervous, not even exactly sure what it is. Well, it stands for Building Information Modeling, right? And if you take a look at the National BIM Standards, this is a group of individuals who get together, I'm sure, frequently. They came up with this particular definition. It's a pretty complicated definition. I'm sure they fought over it. I hesitate to read it to you. You guys can all read, but I'll read it to you. Why not? You can do your email while I'm reading it. It's a digital representation of physical and functional characteristics of a facility. We have all different types of people on this call. It could be also a bridge or a roadway. A BIM building information model. Notice it says a BIM because it's a building information model, is a shared knowledge resource for information about a facility, forming a reliable basis for decisions so you can make intelligent decisions, right, during its life cycle. Defined as existing from its earliest conception to demolition, so throughout the entire life cycle of a building. Now, I actually love the Autodesk definition because it's just shorter and sweeter and easier. BIM is an intelligent model-based process that provides value across the life cycle of a project. So that's from the earliest conception, when you first are thinking about building, I'll say a building in this case, to the very end of the life cycle of that building. So when you're going to demolish it. So from the very beginning to the very end, all right? And I want to say this right up front, right in the very beginning, that BIM, it's not a software, okay? It's a process. You can't go down to the BIM store and buy yourself some BIM. I'm gonna go buy me some BIM. You can't do that. It's a process. There is some software that lends itself much better to the BIM process. And for example, AutoCAD does not lend itself so well to the BIM process. And that's why we feel that angst when we make the move over to BIM, because if you are purely using AutoCAD, you will probably need to switch to a different software product. And depending on what your industry is, it's probably though going to be Revit, Autodesk Revit. And if you're in civil, you get to just stay on Civil 3D. You are the lucky ones, lucky you. If you're an architect, for example, you're going to want to move over to Autodesk Revit. And we'll talk about that. I promise I'll talk about that today. All right, but Revit is not BIM. It's just a tool for BIM. BIM is much more than just a software product, all right? So what the heck is a building information model? Well, let's talk about that. So first of all, it's a super smart, intelligent model, and it has super smart, intelligent objects. It's much smarter than lines, arcs, and circles. Like, it's not just like an AutoCAD drawing file. It's made up of materials and specifications, and it knows how the building is assembled. It knows how it's put together. It might contain information like the price, the cost of the different objects, the manufacturer, the relationships. I think that's really important too. I mean, it knows that windows that goes in walls. If you remove a window, it knows it needs to repair that wall where you remove the window. It knows about doors and how close they are to the edge of the wall and blah, 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 to the corners and things like that. There's relationships that exist inside of this model. It's an intelligent model, something that AutoCAD doesn't know anything about. It's also a 3D digital model that's assembled in the same way a building is constructed. What? So AutoCAD, it doesn't matter what order you put things into an AutoCAD drawing file. Once again, lines, arcs, and circles. Maybe you got blocks, intelligent blocks in there, but the order is really irrelevant. When it comes to creating a building information model, the order is much more important. Okay, you're going to put it together the same way that building is constructed. And this is where your intelligence, those of you who know how a building is constructed, you guys are golden when it comes to BIM. You guys are going to be worth a lot. And I bet a lot of you are very familiar with how a building is constructed. And this is also where you will soar over the people coming right out of college, because they don't know. You know, but they don't know. Just so you know. If that's what's keeping you from making the move to BIM, you should be making the move to BIM, because your value is going to skyrocket, just so you know. It's also, in the background, there's a database of all types of valuable geometric and information that we're used to seeing, right? But also this non-graphic data that we're not used to seeing with AutoCAD, right? That doesn't exist with AutoCAD. So there's just a lot more information involved with this model than what we're used to. And really, people will always say, when it comes to BIM, BIM, it's that I that's the important part, that information aspect of it that is key to building information modeling. And then I just like this quote: if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a BIM model, which is redundant, by the way, is worth 1,000,000. And I say BIM model, even though people say it all the time, is redundant, because that's building information modeling model. That's redundant. Don't say that. Don't be like me, be better than me. So let's talk a little bit more about BIM, some advantages and just some facts about BIM. So BIM is going to require that your cross-functional teams work together. So that's something you may not be used to, right? You're not going to be isolated. Like, you're not going to be throwing it over to the fence to the next team. They might come in early and start to work with you. And you're going to have, ideally, one final model that combines all the different disciplines together. Now, each discipline will have their own model, like a little submodel, but then you're going to put all those pieces of the puzzle together into one final model, one final super smart model. That's how you're going to test it for things like clash detection and things like that. But nevertheless, the other members of the teams that you may not be used to working with are probably going to come in earlier into the cycle than what you're used to, which is a little bit different. So it's going to look a little bit like this. Well, ideally, right? Let's look at the bottom part of this. And I'll just have to tell you that this little chart's been around for like 20 years, but I talk about it anyway, because we're still doing it this way. If you look at that little sawtooth pattern at the bottom, that white line, this is how many of us are still doing it, that traditional execution. So the designer does his designs, and then he throws it over the fence to the engineer, and then the engineer like starts all over again. He does his own, in many cases, AutoCAD design. He starts all over again because he doesn't like the way the designer did it. He starts all over again, and he does his AutoCAD drawing files. He throws it over the fence, and all the different engineers, right? All the variety of engineers. They do their own AutoCAD drawing files. They throw those at the contractor. The contractor starts all over again as well, makes his own AutoCAD drawing files, starts all over again. So we're wasting time every time we hand it over to some other member of the project. And then we hand it over to the drawing owner, and he starts all over again. Everybody keeps starting all over again with new files, and we keep losing intelligence every time we do that. Time and intelligence is ridiculous. As opposed to, ideally, if you have one model, you just keep adding more intelligence to that model, and I don't have to start over from scratch. The designer hands it over to the engineer. He's got the basic floor plan. He can just take the existing floor plan and he can work with that, and he can continue to add in the systems that he needs to put into place. And, you know, continuing down with the contractor can get the information that he needs from the building. He doesn't have to start over from scratch. He may need to add some of his own information in there, but nevertheless, he doesn't need to start over from scratch. So ideally, you save a lot of time and wasted effort. There's a lot of waste that happens there. So if you get paid by the hour, don't move to BIM, I guess, you can look at it that way. And you'll have fewer construction change orders. That's a fact when you make the move over to BIM. There's a reduced number of RFIs. You're going to have so much more information. Everything's going to be a lot more things are hammered out before you ever get to the construction phase. And as was mentioned, so many construction dollars are wasted every year. Did it say 20% back there? I feel like I've seen 20%, 30%, and 40%, so I just keep averaging it out. Everybody has their own vision of how many construction dollars are wasted every year, but it's a lot. Let me just say, there should be 0 construction dollars wasted every year in my book. And then the spoils of rework. I just like this picture. Just take a look at this for a second. This is what happens when we don't plan properly. This is so typical in the construction phase, right? I'm just going to let you look at it. We'll see if anyone's paying attention. You're not doing your email, right? You can see a great big huge yacht are the change orders. And then look at the little dinghy with the original contract in the front. Isn't that horrible? All right, just to see if you're awake. Wake up, everybody. All right. So another thing that's really great about BIM is that you can eliminate the clashes before they happen. So you have this model. Everybody's been working on this model. You put the model, all the different pieces of the model together like a good puzzle, and then you can run clash detection with some great tools that Autodesk has to offer. And then you can go, oh, well, that's bad, right? That doesn't look so good. And you can send that back to the team and they can fix it. And each of the teams technically can run their own clash detection. You don't have to have that big clash party every Friday. You can run clash detections anytime you want, if it's allowed. And just to constantly make sure that, you know, when you fix one clash, you're not making another one. And you can make sure before you get to the construction phase that everything's going to work. So you're not solving problems on the construction site when it's an emergency. You're solving them ahead of time when it's much easier and much less expensive to do so. And this is Autodesk BIM 360. This is just showing you an example of clash detection where they have the model and they're going to check it, and you'll see that there are some clashes that are occurring. And we learn in all software products that apparently red is bad. And here they found some clashes, and then they can very easily send emails to the team that is in charge of correcting this. You can see some of these ducts are in the wrong place, or there's going to be a clash. They can find it out now. They can fix it now before it gets to the construction site. And BIM also leads to an increase in prefabrication. Now we know that anything you can prefabricate costs less money than doing it on the construction site, and it's safer as well. And that's, it's, if you talk to contractors, of course, they'll tell you that prefabrication is definitely going to save money. That's just common sense. So that's a fact down there. That's from that Dodge report. You guys can read that. I don't need to read it for you. And I've already mentioned this to you. It helps save construction waste. There's a beautiful picture of a lot of construction waste. Another thing that you can do with a building information model that you can't do with AutoCAD is you can perform a variety of analyses. It could be an energy analysis, so you can see how your building is going to perform. Is it nice and energy efficient? Are you trying to be LEED certified? You can check it for a structural analysis. How's it going to hold up during an earthquake or in a variety of wind conditions? And how about an environmental analysis as well? There's a variety of different analyses that you can do with a building information model that you just can't do with an AutoCAD drawing. And I just love telling this story, and some of you are in the HVAC industry, so you won't be doing this particular scenario, but I think you can imagine what it would be like in your industry. So this is a scenario. This is a hospital room. This is a surgical room. And just to set the stage for you, 100,000 people die every year as a result of infections that they get on the operating room table. And what you're looking at right now is a computational fluid dynamic. So you're looking at the airflow in a standard operating room. This is a mock-up, of course. And you can see that if you had a patient on the operating room, that the air is just going right on that poor patient, and he really wouldn't stand a chance. And this is very common in operating rooms. And we all know there's a lot of germs in hospitals. That's why we don't like, one of the reasons we don't like to go. There's a lot of germs. And so if there was a way to cut down on the airflow that was getting to that patient, well, you could foreseeably save a lot of lives, correct? So a company called Hunt Air came along, and using computational fluid dynamics, CFD, which I just like to say because it makes me sound so smart, using a type of simulation, they took a look at these hospital rooms, and they figured out how to direct the airflow away from the patient. Very, very key to saving lives. And this is something that you can do when you have a true model. So they truly modeled these rooms. They modeled the entire hospital. The whole hospital actually is modeled. And they were able to simulate. They actually studied clean rooms, by the way. And it's pretty amazing technology. And this is all technology that you would have available to you as well, using CFD. Also embraces cloud technology. That's another presentation for another time. And you may not be designing hospital rooms, but a lot of you are designing buildings. And I like to believe that you care about the airflow in your particular buildings, and you have the ability to test the airflow ahead of time when you have a fully designed room or building to work with, which is pretty amazing technology. It'd be great if you could figure that out ahead of time, wouldn't it? Think of all the happy people that you would have in your buildings. And you also have the ability with BIM to more accurately schedule and sequence and cost estimate. And this happens to be a company called Iike. This is in Mexico City. And they were adding in an elevated highway. I'm sure many of you are in the infrastructure industry. And they wanted to make sure that these cranes would fit. So they needed to do sequencing. And you can see they barely fit, but they used some, they were able to go in and do some scanning of the existing conditions, and they were able to go in and do some mock-ups there with those cranes. And they were able to sequence all of the events here. They actually brought, precast everything ahead of time. They brought all of the different components in for this elevated highway in the middle of the night. They were not in a position to stop traffic in the middle of the day. It was extremely impressive highway. This project was amazing, actually. And how horrible would it have been if they had this all set up and found out that the cranes didn't fit? That would be terrible, right? So all of this is something that you can do with BIM. And also, I mean, this is kind of what really got people into BIM to begin with, was the whole visualization aspect of it. We rely more, no longer can we really hand in 2D drawing files. People just have much higher expectations now. And so with BIM, of course, you can create some pretty amazing 3D visualization. And if this is just an example, on the left-hand side, you can see a rendering of this treatment plant. And on the right-hand side, you can see what actually happened. And look how similar they are. They're very, very similar. But when we're working on a project, there's so many different places where 3D visualization comes in handy. In the very beginning, when you're trying to communicate the project, because a lot of people can't understand a 2D drawing, and it's very helpful when we can truly communicate with a 3D visualization. And also throughout the process, it's also very helpful when we can communicate via 3D visualization. And also for the construction team, extremely helpful when they understand what the goal is. I always joke, I don't cook a recipe if I don't have a picture, you know? So very, very helpful throughout the entire process. And then imagine if you're trying to communicate with a community, or you're trying to communicate with a team. This is something called Revit Live, where they simply took the Revit model, they dropped it into Revit Live, and they're in a situation where anybody can literally do a walkthrough very easily. I love this program. It's included in the collection. It's easy to use. That's why I like it. And it creates this stunning experience where if you happen to have, you know, a headset and a controllers, you can work with it like you see on here, but you don't even have to have that. You can also do it via the computer. It would be pretty impressive for you to work with the community such that they could see what a new project was going to look like and actually do a walkthrough. Oh my gosh, your community would think you were cutting edge. And it's, like I said, it's not hard to do. This program is super simple. Your community would love you. This is a Starbucks. By the way, I should have told you what it was. It was a Starbucks in Japan. So another thing that, and to me, this is such a compelling aspect of BIM, is the ability to have increased certainty with your projects. And, you know, and safety, and safety. We all believe in safety. So here we have the ability to punch out these holes while they're on the ground, when it's safe, or even far ahead of time somewhere else before they are put, you know, up in the air, where it's much more difficult and much more cumbersome and much less safe to punch out those holes for the systems. You know, those types of things are just almost make BIM worthwhile just there. That whole sense of increased certainty throughout the entire project is extremely, extremely valuable. You can make much more informed decisions. And I just like to throw this in, the McCleary Curve. I don't know if any of you have heard of the McCleary Curve, but I do love it because I think it's very, very valuable. So if you take a look at this curve, I'm not going to go into great detail on here, but what I do want to point out that as you go through the cycle, the whole planning project cycle of, well, I'll just say, for example, of a building, the further you go along, the more it costs to make a design change, right? We all know that. It gets more expensive. And the ability to impact a project gets less and less as well as time goes on. So it's really, so BIM has can make a huge impact on this curve. We can come up with intelligent decisions early on. We can make design changes early on because we have increased certainty, and we can keep the cost of the project down. And that's really, really important. All right, this is for you AutoCAD people. This is the part you're gonna like the most, by far the most, I tell you, is that there's so much tedium that's gonna go away when you make the move over to BIM. And we're used to spending so much time with the drawing views, the elevations, the schedules. Oh my gosh, there's so many boring things that we do. All those construction documents are so boring. So we spend a lot more time on the actual model, a lot more time up front on the actual model, and then all those construction documents are generated, geez, almost automatically from the model. They're just pulled from the model, and that is huge. And that also means that if you change the model, all of your construction documents, all of your details, all of your schedules, all your elevations, they all update automatically. Imagine, if you will. You don't have to go through and check them. It's magic. It's just magic. It is absolutely amazing. That's a smart way to do it. And you have a lot less errors as well. A lot less tedium, a lot less errors. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so here's the Smart Market Report. Oh, I should put on the new one. It's the same idea though. And you're gonna look for the one that says Dodge, because they're the ones who bought the Smart Market Reports. There's tons of them out there. I just put this one up here, the Visits Value for BIM for Owners. There's a bunch of them out there. And just to remind you to go take a look at them. I'm only going to show you a few of these because they get really boring. And this is, once again, for general BIM adoption facts, so you can see where the world is going. Nearly half of the civil firms are using BIM. 70% of architects have adopted BIM. 74% of contractors. 67% of structural MEP report to participating in BIM projects, and contractors by far see the highest ROI. Contractors totally get it. They totally get it. You saw that yacht, right? That huge yacht. They totally get it. All right, and then I thought, show you this and I just grabbed this. This is brand new. This is also a little more focused on construction, but 70% fewer RFIs during construction. 54% are 54% of contractors are figuring that they have reduced material waste, okay? That's not yet another fact on how much material waste there is out there. 51% see a shortened schedule. 48% see a lower final construction cost, and 25% fewer safety incidents. And I say if there's even 1% fewer safety incident, that's a good reason to make the change. We're all about safety. We want people to be safe. Here's just an example for those of you who are contractors on there. And there's a whole Smart Market Report for contractors. You can go up there and take a look at that. There's one for civil. There's one for architects. There's, you name it. There's a zillion of them up there. There is not one specific for government, or I would have put that on here. Someday there will be. And I think this is also a great way to show you to me, making the move to Revit from a time standpoint, how your life will be better. This is a really good friend of mine, David Cohn, and let me just tell you, he's an AutoCAD guru. He's used AutoCAD longer than I have, which he likes to brag about all the time. And he's really an AutoCAD guru, and he knows Revit too, but not as well as he knows AutoCAD. So I want you to keep that in mind as well. And this is let's see now, what was this? It was a hospital. He needed to convert it over to just basic floor plans, and I want you to see the results of this, all right? So you can see AutoCAD on the left, Revit on the right. He did them both from scratch. He needed to come up, I think there were 2 floors that he had to do, and he needed to do it, once again, from scratch. And I want you to see that the floor plans took about the same amount of time in both AutoCAD and Revit. So he didn't save any time there with just the floor plans. But when you add in the things like the elevations, elevations take a long time to do on AutoCAD. And the reflected ceiling plans, they take a long time to do. You can see it over on the right. They took a little bit of time to do in Revit. I'm not gonna lie there. But look at building sections. They took no time to do inside of Revit. You just draw a line, man, you're done, good to go. I want you to look at the construction documents. You know how long those take to do inside of AutoCAD. Take a look at some of these others, the schedules and the renderings and things like that. It just took so much less time to do total inside of Revit because those are all pulled off of the original model in Revit. So once you do that upfront work, it's a piece of cake to get all those other pieces together and pull it off of the model. So if you're trying to prove it from a timing standpoint, Revit's just going to win. It's just that simple. And it may not feel that way at first because you need to learn a new product, but eventually you're going to be able to get your job done so much faster in Revit. There's still a learning curve. I'm not going to tell you there's not a learning curve, but once you learn it, A, you'll never go back to AutoCAD. Nobody ever does. And B, you're going to get your jobs done faster, right? I can get you more information on this. So another thing is, you don't have to throw your AutoCAD away and jump in with both feet. And nobody recommends that because that sounds really horrible, doesn't it? But eventually, if you do jump in with both feet, you're going to see the highest return on your investment. The people that straggle for too long are not going to see a very good return on investment, and you're going to have to spend some money. So I want to make sure that you feel successful at it. This is a bit of a tricky chart to explain. I prefer it when I can point, but you guys can't see me. So let me just take a look on the far left there, the low BIM engagement. If you are not willing to jump in with both feet like a swimming pool, just know that you are going to lose some money until you do. That's all I want you to know. That 35%, that means you're losing money. And that if you take a look at the very high BIM engagement off to the right, you can see that big 50% in blue, light blue at the top. That means that they're making a lot of money. And you have to account for your budgets. And I know you guys want to be successful. And I know that you want to be able to prove that you know how to spend your money properly. So you don't want to spend too much time making that move to BIM. You want to jump in as fast as you can, within reason though. You know, you don't want to go crazy, within reason. So let's say you decided that, okay, Lynn, we believe you. We know we should make the move to BIM. Okay, Lynn, you're right. We should make the move to BIM. So what now? What are you going to do? So I just want you to understand some things. As mentioned, you're not going to move to BIM overnight. You're probably going to need to invest in some better hardware because those models have a lot more information stored in them. Like I said, they have a lot of intelligent information. They have got some pretty serious databases behind them. You're going to probably need to, as mentioned, invest in other software. You might have to invest in other software depending on what you're using. You might need to make the move over to, you probably need to get the AEC collection. And you will probably, well, you will spend more time on your model at first. Not probably, you will. It's going to take more time. It's going to take time and money, things we love to spend. And BIM is more front-loaded. So it's going to take you, this is also upsetting to people. So you're going to spend more time in the beginning doing that model than you did in the past. And then you'll pull the construction documents are going to be a piece of cake, but you got to be patient to get to that point where you get the construction documents off. So that part's a little frustrating too. You're going to be, it's taking me a long time to get this model done, Lynn. I don't know, but once you do get it done, then the world is a beautiful place. You pull those construction documents off, changes take no time at all. So you just have to be patient. And as you get better at using the software, you'll get your jobs done faster as well. So the change in process, let's talk about that because I did tell you that BIM is a process. There's more emphasis, as I mentioned, the time placed on that early design. I'm just going to keep saying that. And once again, I'll keep saying less time on construction documents. And I also mentioned to you that the model's assembled the same way as a building is constructed. I already said that. I already said the extended design teams might become involved earlier, so brace yourself, right? But the last thing is also important. You have CAD standards. Hopefully you're following some CAD standards. Well, guess what? There's BIM standards as well, and you're going to have to get those in place, and there's some controls, and you're going to have to create these really, really good templates. And you're going to need to have someone to help you do that. So you'll have to have a good BIM manager. You have a good CAD manager. I'm sure you'll need a good BIM manager. You may have to pay somebody new to help you with that. And you'll probably need to go to your government reseller and have them help you through this as well and help you make some recommendations. You'll need to get all of that in place so that your entire government team can be successful. Your office can be successful in making the move over to BIM. So what else? What else do you want to know? Let me tell you this. I always say this, if you can learn AutoCAD, you can learn Revit. AutoCAD is super hard to learn, by the way. It's one of the hardest products. Did you know it's one of the hardest products in the world to learn? So if you learned AutoCAD, first of all, pat yourself on the back. You were brilliant. Pat, pat, pat. And then let me just tell you, you'll totally be able to learn Revit. You'll have to kind of erase your AutoCAD knowledge a little bit. Don't be sitting there going, well, what about the command line? And what about layers? And what about this? And what about that? Because you'll drive your Revit teacher crazy. You'll have to be open-minded and just realize it's different. But it's a lot easier. And for those of you who are on AutoCAD architecture, well, shut up. You guys are already halfway there because AutoCAD architecture is a lot closer to Revit than just plain AutoCAD. You know, AutoCAD's very generic. It was written all things for all people in the lines, arcs, and circles, whereas AutoCAD architecture does have some of that basic object information in there. I mean, it does have wall types, although they're a lot harder than the wall types in Revit. So if you're in AutoCAD architecture, then at least you're closer. And you know, with the latest release of AutoCAD, AutoCAD 2019, AutoCAD architecture is included for free if you're a subscriber. So if you're not ready to make the move to BIM yet, and you have AutoCAD 2019, hey, promise me that you will at least start trying to use AutoCAD architecture, because that will start you on the road to making the move over to BIM. That's a good start, okay? That'll start to make you feel a little more comfortable with what it would be like to be in Revit. That'll start nudging you a little bit there. It's like a patch to get you there. It's BIM patch. Although it's not like it's like you're addicted to AutoCAD, but it's going to get you off of AutoCAD a little bit and help you make the move to Revit. I'm totally winging that one right now. I'm sure I'm going to hear about that one later. All right, anyway, and what else? Revit's newer than AutoCAD. Let's recap. AutoCAD's 35 years old. Anything's newer than AutoCAD, let's face it. Okay, and Revit was designed specifically for AEC. So it's written, it talks to you like you are an architect or an engineer or whatever. It talks to you the way it needs to talk to you, which is a beautiful thing. And as I mentioned to you, change it once, change it everywhere. You make a change to a sheet, it's going to update all of the views, all of the details. It is a beautiful thing. We like beautiful things. And then this is also something that drives AutoCAD people crazy. We're used to working with a whole bunch of DWG files. Well, now you're working with like one file. That's a little wacky. Like, what? What about all my different DWG files? You just have one file. That's a little crazy. There's a lot less TDM. There's no more of that awful polylining. We hate that anyway. No one's going to miss that. No one cries over that. May it rest in peace. If you try to do 3D in AutoCAD, unless you were in AutoCAD architecture, 3D in AutoCAD is painful at best. This 3D is generated automatically for you, so it's not as painful. A lot of it happens behind the scenes. You don't even have to think about it. You don't even have to know what the heck you're doing. It's much easier. And then after the learning curve, as I mentioned, you're going to get your jobs done faster. So you can sit back and relax a little. Hopefully they won't shorten that project schedule too much. You're going to get your jobs done faster. And then also, we did a lot of hard work in AutoCAD, and it makes us feel bad when we think that we have to throw away our drawing files, right? Well, what about all my hard work? Well, you don't have to throw it all away. You can actually import your DWG files into Revit. You can use it like the basic floor plan. If you want to bring that in, you can work from that. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's no need to recreate your details if you've already done them. You can still use those, once again, in Revit. And the links are dynamic, kind of like XREF. So if you do make a change to a detail or floor plan, it will update inside of Revit, which is nice. Something for you to think about. Eventually, you won't want to do that, but once again, it's kind of like the patch or the drip. It'll make you feel better. And I can't emphasize this enough. I do this presentation all the time live, and then there's always a couple of Revit users in the audience, and I always ask them to raise their hands, and then I say, hey, do you want to go back to using AutoCAD? Nobody ever says yes. They don't. In fact, they don't just kind of say no. They like vehemently say no. They're like, no way. Sometimes there's a cuss word. So it's once you really make the move to Revit, you just do not want to go back to AutoCAD because it's so enlightening and so much easier and so much more fun. It's just really, really a fun product to use. So for those of you who, in order to make the move to BIM, need to make the move over to a product like Revit, oh my gosh, you're just going to be so happy. So let me also say that I'm a big fan of training. I spent the first 13 years of my life in training. I'm a big fan of hands-on training. I think you should go to your local government reseller. I think you should sit in a classroom away from your office and turn off your phone. And I think you should have someone standing behind you, and you should follow the exercises and make sure that you learn Revit the old-fashioned way personally. They can come to your office, but then you get sidetracked and there's meetings. It's too easy not to pay attention. That's my own personal opinion. That seems to be, and what I have seen works the best for organizations. And it's also very important that you take this training during a time where you will go back to the office and actually have a project to use it on. Don't take the training and not have a project for 6 months, or not have the software for 6 months, because you are wasting your money. So timing is very, very important as well. And also make sure that you start with a very low stress pilot project, all right? Don't start off with the, I don't know, Shanghai Tower or something really, don't start off with something that's a big deal. Start with something that you're very familiar with. Start with something that is where you're not going to be puzzled over the design. Something that you've done many times would be a good idea. And I am almost finished here. I know I'm running out of time. I talked too much today. So also realize that if you happen to be upper management, that you need to be supportive and patient, because it takes time to make the move over to BIM. And you really, really need to just give people their space. Otherwise, it's just going to go badly, and people are going to throw up their hands and just give up. And the result, if all of this happens, You're going to have a nice, well-trained workforce. They're going to get their projects done faster. You're going to have an intelligent 3D model. You're going to save money on your projects. You're going to meet your budgets, and everybody's just going to live happily ever after. How about that? Yay! Look how happy those people are. Look how happy they are. And so what do you do with the rebels? You're still going to have some people in the office that absolutely will not make the move over to AutoCAD. Well, as I told you, the people that really make the move over to Revit don't want to use AutoCAD anymore. So you can still use them to do the AutoCAD drawings that you will still have, because it doesn't always make sense to do everything. If you're just making some basic alterations, it still makes sense to just go back and alter the AutoCAD drawing files. AutoCAD still can be part of the BIM process, so there's still a reason to have AutoCAD users, but I strongly recommend that for you who's listening right now to try to make the move. Adopting BIM is going to help you maintain your budgets. You're going to be a fan. People are going to love your department. And I'm going to tell you this for you, all right? Once you add BIM to your resume, you yourself are going to be more valuable. I mean, if I was at a company and they were willing to train me on BIM, I would be all over it. I'd be like, yes, take me, take me. I want to learn it. I want to be more valuable. I want to add something to my resume. I want to be smarter in BIM, because BIM is the future and it's going to open the doors to lots of opportunities for you. That's my personal advice to you. I see it all the time, especially if you know how to model it the way you build it. You guys who really understand how something is designed, how something is built, once again, you will be so much more successful than someone who's just coming out of college, because they don't get it and you get it. You get it. All right, I got to wrap it up. I think I'm almost finished. Then you can think design and not CAD, and it's so much more fun to think design and not CAD, let me tell you. All right, making the move to BIM is the right decision, just like making the move to CAD was 30 years ago, even though I spent a whole lot of my life convincing people that that was the case and begging them to stay in their seats and not leave my classroom. It is the right decision today. I know it is. I know it is. I've seen it. And I just like this phrase, just like this. The most dangerous phrase in the language is, we've always done it this way. I was just on a call this morning where I heard that phrase, I think 3 times. It's not a good phrase. Doesn't mean we should keep doing it that way. And then I just threw this one in today because I thought it was amusing. I'm not going to read it. You guys can read. And that's it for me. So there's my email. If you have any other questions, or if I can help you in any way, if you are struggling with someone in the office that won't make the move, or if there's anything I can do, just let me know. That's my email, lynnallen-consult@outlook.com. And I'm on Twitter too. You can also reach out to me on Twitter @Lynn_Allen. And I'm going to turn the time back over to the fabulous, fabulous people at DLT. I love them. They're wonderful. Back over to Sean. There you go.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much. Amazing message today. Really compelling.
Thank you.
A lot of action words when it comes to transitioning. I heard making the jump, making the leap, making the move. We got to get up and get active.
It's an exercise. It's a BIM exercise.
Just a couple thoughts as we send everybody on their way. But when I've witnessed you kind of pose the question to live audiences about where they're at in the transition to BIM, you know, a lot of folks raising their hand proudly saying they're 5 or 6 years into the BIM transformation, and there's others in the room that are you know, fear and maybe even a small tear in their eye as they even contemplate making that change. But I thought your BIM adoption slide was really powerful. The mandates, the deliverables, BIM is here, BIM is powerful, and it is a huge undertaking, but it is worth your investment, and it is certainly worth your while to get your local Autodesk VAR involved in your process, in your transition, to help steer and guide you in the best route for your organization. So, Lynn, thank you again. Well, actually, I'm going to jump around a little bit here because I want to get to the last bullet first. This is not made up. This is literally, it was released today. Our BIM for Govy book is hot off the press. And if we can get this right on GoToMeeting, we're going to share the link for everybody who looks at the notes. You can grab the link for our BIM for Govies ebook. We would encourage all of you to utilize that as a resource. It segues nicely into the content we talked about here. And then what we plan on doing is recording this webinar. It's going to take us a couple days to get the recording down, but we will share that with all of the attendees today. And we'll also share our Gov Design Hub web link, and then we'll share the portal where you can register for future webinars, and you can actually see the calendar of events for our live events. So if you don't have anything else to add, Lynn, we thank you again. It was great content. Appreciate the time, and have a great day.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.